Hari Jaya. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijayacharya Astoru Shishyamat His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijayacharya Astoru Shishyamat His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Anandikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Saridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Vrindavan Navadip Dham Ki Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanande All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the 4th canto, chapter 16, text number 11. Durasado durvisaha asanapi vidurava na eva abhibhavatum sakyo venaranya utito nala durasada durvisaha asanapi vidurava na eva abhibhavutam sakyo venaranya utito nala. Durasado durvishaha asanapi vidurva na eva bibhavitam sakyo venarani utito nala. Durasado durvishaha Durasada unapproachable, durvisaha unbearable, asana being approached, api although, viduravad as if far away, na never, eva certainly, abhibhavutam to be overcome, sakya able, vena King Vena, arani the wood that produces fire, utita being born of, anala fire. Translation: King Prithu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from arani wood. Thus King Prithu always remained just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies, for although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Arani wood is a kind of fuel used to ignite fire by friction. At the time of performing sacrifices, one can ignite a fire from arani wood. Although born of his dead father, King Prithu would still remain just like fire. Just as fire is not easily approached, King Prithu would be unapproachable by his enemies, even though they would appear to be very near him. The verse again, King Prithu was born of the dead body of King Vena, as fire is produced from the arani wood. Thus King Prithu will always remain just like fire, and his enemies will not be able to approach him. Indeed, he will be unbearable to his enemies. For although staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. No one will be able to overcome the strength of King Prithu. So it's a very short purport given by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And it's talking about, looking at the verse itself, it's talking about King Prithu. This is a glorification of him by the citizens or the people, that he will be unbearable to his enemies. Unbearable meaning that enemies will not be able to come close to him or attack him in any way. That's what it really means. And his enemies will not be able to approach him doesn't mean that they cannot approach him. And another point is talking about staying very near. For all those staying very near him, they will never be able to approach him, but will have to remain as if far away. So although you may be close to somebody, but you may be very far away from the person. So physically one may be close, but in consciousness you're far away. So like that, that the devotee is also like that. The devotee in consciousness, he's far away from the material energy, but he's close to Krishna. When he follows the regular program and he worships the deity, gets up in the morning, chants his rounds, the normal program, the program that we do in the morning. So we're very close to Krishna, but we're very far away from the material energy. So whilst we're here in this room, we may have other desires whilst we're in the spiritual environment, but we're not affected by it because we're close to Krishna. Although it may come, but because we're protected in this environment, we're close. So the citizens who abide by the orders of Prithu Maharaj will be very close to him. The citizens who doesn't abide by the orders of Prithu Maharaj will be very far away from him. So that is how I kind of understood it. Although it's not said like that. But I'm applying it to our own life. That yes, we even in an environment, we can be at a distance. It does not necessarily mean. Sometimes you find we talking to people and they're thinking of something completely different. Their mind is not with you. You have that kind of feeling. You say to the person, "Well, I'm talking to you, but you're not here. You're not listening." But in consciousness, he's somewhere else. So, but for a devotee, it's okay if he's somewhere in a material energy or the material world, outside the environment, spiritual environment, and his mind is far away, it's good. Because he's thinking of Krishna. How can I go back to the temple? Like that. So in that way, the enemies, and who are the enemies? Who's our enemy? Enemy number one. And the only enemy. Mind, huh? Sugamare say mind. So, yes, the mind. The mind is our enemy. And it's like, we have to control our mind. If we can't control our mind, it'll run away. But how do we control our mind? But by suitable practice and detachment, by engaging in devotional service and doing the same things every day, we control our mind. So the mind is very turbulent, obstinate, and very stubborn. And but the best way to control the mind is, as Prabhupada writes in the purport of that verse 634 in the Bhagavad Gita, by chanting towards the end, he by chanting with all humility. So we were talking about also that yes, we're in the environment of devotees and we should take advantage of their association and not be far away. Like the enemies, Prithu Maharaj, as it said here in the purport, in the verse itself, the enemies will be far away from him. But for a devotee, if he's a devotee, then he won't have any enemies. He'll be far away from him. All these troubles will be far away from him because he has the association of devotees. Because, Maya is very strong and we often speak about it. And to all of us, we have our challenges. And I'm reminded about Haridas Thakur, how he was tested. When a lady had come to him and when a female had come to him and wanted his association, but he was busy with his chanting. And although she was close to him, but at the same time far away, as the verse itself says. So like this, Haridas Thakur continued to chant the holy names, and he said, as soon as I finish my chanting, then I will satisfy your desire. But as she was hearing the chanting of the holy name, there's purification and then left. So that happened for like 3 days. 3 days that was happening there. And anyway, at the end of the 3rd day, the woman spoke to Haridas Thakur, my dear sir, for 3 days I have cheated you. For 3 days you have cheated me by giving false assurances. For I see through the entire day and night you chanting the holy names and you never finished. So therefore in our own practices, although we have our quota of rounds, our 16 rounds, we chant and we should chant throughout the day as much as, and whenever we have time, we should chant. Even for myself, I have the habit of chanting. But this last some days I was ill, so I couldn't really manage so much. But I never ever say that I've finished my chanting. I still got rounds to chant. We still have rounds to chant. So we should just continue chanting whenever we have the time. And Haridas Thakur had taken that vow, so we also have taken vows. So we should keep to our vow, to chant our 16 rounds. So like this, after so many days, this female, who was Maya Devi, said, I'm the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord and I just came to test you. So like this, we may get tested from time to time in devotional practices, and it's okay, we have to pass, but we will pass the test if we're in the association of devotees and we get assistance from the other devotees. We're sure to pass the test. So like this, many things are said there in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You can read more about it. But Maya Devi was saying that previously I captured Brahma, but I couldn't really capture your mind. So like this, simply by hearing and chanting the holy name, our consciousness is purified and we surrender more and more. So like this, protection is very important for us, and one of the most important aspects of a king's service is to protect his citizens or his praja or his subjects. But there's so many challenges also in doing such service as a king, as a leader. Like we find today, nowadays, it's so difficult. And protection is always required. Also, I'm reminded of how Bali Maharaj was also tested. And Prabhupada writes in that purport about Bali Maharaj, some interesting points. But in the end, everything was, although he surrendered, everything, but still there was some sort of, there was something left, some very little contamination, you could say, because the third step was on his head, on Vamandev's. Or the third step, he wanted step. I'm battling today. So the third step, Vamadev So the third step was on his head. So that understanding is that, still, there's some some idea that you stole the body, that the body belongs to me. But Bali Maharaj was quite a surrendered soul. Everything was taken from him, his riches. He was defeated and arrested. He was rebuked and deserted by his relatives and friends. Especially when you rebuked and deserted by your relatives and people who are close to you, there's a lot of pain. We were discussing it the other day. He was bound, he was cursed by his spiritual master. There's so many different things. But he did not give up his truthfulness. He was always true to his word. And Prabhupada in that purport writes that Bali Maharaj passed the severe test. This is further proof of the Lord's mercy towards his devotee. And once, someone wrote to me about, I was very ill at that time, and they wrote to me and particularly quoted this purport. And I'm very attached to this purport because it says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes put a devotee to severe tests that are almost unbearable, like in the verse it's mentioned, unbearable. But he managed to pass all those tests. And why so? The Lord certainly appreciates the devotee's forbearance, and it is recorded for the future glorification of the devotee. So if the devotee go through some trials and tribulations, that is very much remembered, especially when he comes out of it. So a devotee is tested from time to time. Sisi Raghunath ki. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, he says that was not an ordinary test, but for the future glorification of Bali Maharaj, one of the Mahajan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not only tested him, but also gave him the strength to tolerate such adversity. So, we may go through a test, may be difficult, but the Lord also gives us the strength. And the Lord gives him the necessary strength to tolerate and continue and remain a glorious devotee. Yeah. So So we have to surrender more and more to Krishna. And the more we surrender, the better for us. Like as the sixth division of surrender, we accept everything that is favorable, we reject what's unfavorable. Something may be favorable for one person, may not be favorable for another. Some people, generally it's best to sit and chant. You can focus. But for some people, they like walking and chanting, and that's also okay. So some things may be favorable for one person, may not be favorable for another. And we should have faith that Krishna will protect us. He's our guardian and master. And we should surrender fully with all humility. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I could speak a little bit more, but I'm battling away. Maybe just a little more on the purport. This is interesting that I found. The fire which is ignited by the spiritual potency of a Brahmana. So formerly the Brahmanas used to ignite the fire not by external factors, by matches or something, but by mantras, which is called Arani. So we never dissatisfy a Brahmana, because if we do so, he can ruin us. Also at the same time, we were talking last week about the Brahmanas or the government's property and the Brahmanas' property. If somebody touched the Brahmanas' property partially, he becomes ruined by 3 generations, namely himself, his son and his grandson. 3 generations. And just for example, if you take the Brahmana's property forcefully, then the taker's family, 10 generations before him and 10 generations after him, will be subject to ruination, will be destroyed. So therefore we should not touch a Brahmana's property, and we should be able to utilize the property of a Brahman effectively and in the service of Krishna. For example, we utilize everything in our temple for the service of Krishna, like that. And Prabhupada is the number one Brahman. If we misuse his property, we'll be in trouble also. So we best try to use everything in the service of Krishna. There's a nice verse in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 64th chapter, text 34. Person kills only the person who ingests it, or maybe poison. Poison kills only the person who ingests it, and an ordinary fire may be extinguished with water. But the fire generated from the kindling wood of a Brahman's property burns the thief's entire family down to the root. And just like if you have an old tree, and in the old tree you have like a cavity, a hole, and sometimes when fire burns, it's burning inside. So even if it's raining, that fire still remains burning. So what happened? It destroys the whole tree from within, all the way down to the roots in the ground. So similarly, the fire ignited by stealing a Brahman's property is the most deadly and should be avoided at all costs, because it can really destroy you. Okay, I'll stop here. Any comments or questions? Hare Krishna. Yes, okay. Can you use this?
Talking about the potency of brahmanas, kiss, anger, some reason. Example, Shakuntala was kissed by Ramana Kasyapu. And she suffered dearly for it. Is that proper behavior?
I guess we shouldn't curse anybody, because if you don't have the potency to curse somebody, it's going to come back to you, you know. So, but cursing, curse them in a good way, that they can make advancement in spiritual life or for their own benefit. People are respectful also, I've seen in India, to like sadhus, and although those people may be not following the principles too. Because once I was speaking to a person in Vrindavan, and I was telling him, that I was quoting the 1842 verse of the qualities of a Brahmana. Is truthful, is pure, there's so many different qualities. But the person who was there, he's a resident, he was saying, well, we just respect everybody as a Brahmana, and we don't discriminate. So in that way, some people are like that. They just see the good qualities, although they may not, the Brahmana is not really qualified or doesn't have the qualities. Like even Prabhupada's father was respectful to people who would smoke, take drugs or whatever, or engage in illicit activity, but he was still respectful to them. So, cursing other people, if something good come out of it, it's okay. But it's not recommended to do that. Yeah. Anybody else would like to comment on what he said? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.